Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome to The Pleasure Zone, sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. And this is a real day for pleasure, I tell ya. Our topic is a hot one, Clitoracy. How fluent are you in your clitoris? Well, we're going to be talking about that. How fluent are you in clitoris, and even in your own, or even in your lover's? That's the question of the hour. Before we jump into the show and the topic, I would love to chat with you guys about some of the things that are going on in my life. So for those of you who are listening, and it's the current show, we are still going through pandemic 2020, and it is May, and it's crazy that we're still going through pandemic. I have lots of interesting takes on that, but that's not what this show is about. What is interesting, though, is thanks to pandemic, I get to be taking belly dance classes on Wednesday nights with a friend of mine online, which has been super fun, and my body is so excited and happy for belly dancing. And I'm finding that my hips are just like doing moves here and there and all over the place. And I mention that because what it's done for my body is it's invited a kind of a different energy into sensual movement for me. The movement that I've studied has a pretty sensual vibe to it. When I look at what we're doing in belly dance class and the different movements we do, I think it's very interesting how much they're very close to the movement that I learned with the body work that I do. And there's a little edge of super sexiness with them that wasn't in the teachings of the body work that I learned. So the belly dancing definitely has that sexy edge, and it's so fun. And as that energy has been opening up, I've been curious to look at other things about how to become more fluent in other ways with our bodies as well. Fluency is like a way that energy moves, and fluency as a way that we can just get more communication going with our body, we can say. So aside from that, I've been watching this. It's sort of interesting, sort of not. So I'm not going to really promote it. This Spanish show called Victoria. I think it's called Victoria. Anyway, in it, there are all these characters at different level, like different places in their lives with their like sexual awareness, and it was interesting because of the characters, you could see that some of them are supposed to be very sexually aware and their partners are sexually very literate, and the other ones are very illiterate. So I thought it could be a fun conversation to talk about clitoracy in general, and like, what is that? Like, what is clitoracy, and what an interesting and fun word. From where I'm familiar with the word clitoracy is that it came from Regina Thomas Hauer in her book, Pussy, a Reclamation. However, there are other references to the word clitoracy. There's an artist in 2015, she did an art installation that was all about clitoracy as well. I will see if I can find that information for you guys, because it's just kind of fun information to have. So I'll look for that after. But just so you know, there are many references in literature and in art to what we're now calling clitoracy. For one thing, when we're talking about clitoracy, we're talking about knowing and having conversation and having information about the clitoris. Seems like a pretty small thing to have conversation about. Well, the truth is, for some people, yes, the clitoris is small, and for some people, there are clitorises in the world that are engorged, enlarged, and they're actually more on the verge of what people would identify as like small penises. So clitorises are a wide range of possibilities. There are super long clitorises, super small ones, ones that have hoods that, clitoral hoods that, retract more, ones that are more hidden, ones that are deep. And then we've got women in the world whose clitorises have been removed because of clitoridectomies. So this conversation is about all of that and more. And we're going to be talking about the anatomy, and we're going to be talking about like the do's and don'ts of the clitoris. And, in general, how do we become better lovers with ourselves, as women with our own clitorises? And then how do we invite our partners to become more fluent with our clitoris without becoming a nag or a bore or being, bossy or something, unless of course your partner's into bossy and you guys have some BDSM play going on. Cool. And if you don't, then how do we approach this subject? And it's a subject that's pretty, I think, secretly important to women. My awareness of this is that so many women would love to have this conversation and are afraid of it. I know that because I invited a whole lot of women to come on and talk with me tonight about this, and so many have not shown up. So that's an interesting thing to me, that as much as people are saying they'd like to talk about the clitoris, how much is there like fear? How much is there judgment, self-judgment? Do I know enough? What can I say? All right, cool. That's part of it. That's part of what's going on. And, maybe the more we have these conversations openly, maybe people will be able to tell their partner what they like. If you identify as a woman and you have the anatomy that is identified gender-wise as a woman, like you have a vulva and you have the clitoris as part of that, maybe you'll be able to have a conversation about what you like. It's interesting to me that we have been basically trained our entire lifetimes to make this super powerful part of our anatomy, that we've been trained to hide the fact that it's powerful. We've been trained to hide the fact that it's pleasurable. And there's so much that we've been trained to not receive with our bodies, and especially with our clitorises, that it's like we've pushed them aside, brushed them aside, and made them irrelevant, but they're really, really relevant. And I like to talk about the relevancy of the clitoris because we have still so many places in the world that know there's some potency in that clitoris, which is why they're doing clitoridectomies, because they just swear women are going to go outrageous. They're going to become, sexual fanatics, something psychologically disturbing, or maybe they'll cheat on their partners or whatever if they are, if they have a clitoris that's, visible. I'm saying visible because even the women who have had clitoridectomies, a lot of times there's still a root of the clitoris that still remains. And as we know from one of my first conversations here on the Pleasure Zone with the people, the people from the orgasmic meditation, people from One Taste, talked about how the clitoris is actually, even in women who have had clitoridectomies, the clitoris is something that is so deep and actually much longer than we expected to think that it is still possible to find ways to stimulate that in women who have had clitoridectomies. So I mention this, why? Not to freak you out and make you cross your legs and squirm, oh my God, women are getting clitoridectomies. If this is news to you, I'm sorry that this might be scaring you, but if you're familiar with this concept where, women have had their clitorises removed, then you'll get that this conversation needs to occur so that this can be a choice. Like I'm not making it wrong. I'm saying if women would like this in their life, cool. But to be coerced or to be told that this is the right way to do it, or to be told like this is, you're only clean or you're only marryable, or whatever the propaganda and whatever all of these stories are that women are being told and then forced into having clitoridectomies, that I'm not okay with. I'm not okay with the force of anything to a child or an adult. I'm completely for and all for whatever activities you're choosing to engage in, as long as they are consensual. You have consented and the other person is consented. I'm all for that. And if that is something that women out there are going, I'd really like a clitoridectomy, okay. I'm not going to judge your choice on that. I would like you to have information before, you're feeling like you're forced, held down, and then have your clitoris ripped off. I would like you to have information so that you can have an informed choice. I'm all about the informed choice, and I'm all about consensual anything. If you want to poop on each other and you've consented to it, you go for it. If you want to, I don't know, whatever it is, screw in public, go ahead, as long as you're consenting to each other and to the people who are having to watch you, and they've all consented and said, yes, we would like to watch you have sex in public. Okay, everybody's consented, awesome. It's when people are forced into situations, even if you're having sex in public and, the people around you are in a position where they can't not watch you, that's not fair either, right? So that's not really giving them a choice. I mean, they could close their eyes, but if you're being like super in their face, then the chances are no, you're probably going to get a lot of attention. So all for choice. And what can we do to have more and more choice with what we know and what we choose and what we do with our clitorises? Well, ladies and gentlemen, whoever you are out there that, have an anatomically a clitoris, I'm not going to say that there aren't any people who identify as male out there that have a clitoris, because there are people out there who identify as male who maybe haven't transitioned yet into having their gender identity changed into being male. So all of everyone who is, embracing the clitoris, and to the men who are transitioning, who are actually women who are transitioning into being women as well, who would like to know about the magical clitoris. I haven't done a lot of research on how they can have that show up, but that would be a curiosity. I'm curious if there's anybody out there who is transitioning from gender male or being born male to gender female, and they're going through the transition and they're going through the operation. I would love to know about that from a personal perspective, like what you feel is pleasurable. What is your choice in terms of having surgery, and like what do you have in the end? And I get it's all personal, but really this is like information, and if you're willing to share it, that's fantastic. And I also get that for some people they're like, well, I don't ask about yours. I'm like, okay, but I am asking about yours. So there you go. So as for all of you who are listening too, if you really don't know where or what the clitoris is, that is the place to start, right? That is, where do we start? The clitoris is not on your face, unless you're really lucky and it happens to be like at the tip of your nose and you have two, and then every time you sneeze, you rub your clitoris. Actually, that sounds very enjoyable. I would be really okay with a hidden secret clitoris on the tip of my nose, that every time I like touch my nose or rub my nose or have an Eskimo kiss, that it's like having clitoral stimulation. That would be all right. That was a complete sidetrack because that's where my brain goes. So, but if you really don't know where the clitoris is, it's part of what we call the vulva. So the vulva includes things like the labia majora, labia minora, introitus, and it includes the clitoris and the clitoral hood. And all of those, there's different parts to the clitoris which are very akin to the different parts of a penis, actually. There's equally as many anatomical kind of parts to them, like the shaft, and the clitoral hood is akin to the foreskin. So we'll talk a little bit more about that so you can know about the anatomy, how to work with this crazy wild thing called the clitoris and have some fun with it, And maybe my brave friends are going to come on and start to talk about their experiences. I hope that shows up. So thank you so much for listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we're going to head to our first commercial break.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. So before the break, I had mentioned that I knew that there was an artist who had done a piece of work called Clitoracy. Her name is Sophia Wallace, and that work was from 2015. So feel free to look for that and check that out. So let's talk about some factual actuals about the clitoris. And we do have a brave friend of mine who's joining today, and I love that. Awesome. But she will in a few minutes. Awesome. She's just listening right now. And I think she has some experience with clitorises, so I'm excited to have her join us. And let's talk about some factual things about clitorises, because that can be helpful to have some background information. So one of the things I think that a lot of people think about when they think about the clitoris, and it kind of tapped into this, is a lot of people think the clitoris is just that little bit that maybe you can see. And I've had so many men go, I can't find hers. Why? Because mine is a hidden secret gem, I tell you people. And the thing about having a hidden secret gem of a clitoris is it makes a guy or girl, whoever the pleasure player is that day, makes the pleasure player have a little bit of fun coming in to explore, like, where is this clitoris and like what's going on here. So I would like people to have a little bit of exploratory fun. And like I mentioned earlier, there are clitorises of various sizes and lengths and widths, and there are, like I mentioned before, some that even look like very small penises, and that, all of that, normal. None of that requires you to go out and have any kind of plastic surgery done. I don't know if you guys know this, but there is a lot of plastic surgery going on women's genitals now, and that is by women's choice, which blows my mind when we have this whole part of society too that's still doing the clitoridectomies. What's going on, people? Can we just stop judging our beautiful vulvas? That would be awesome. Yay! So not judging our beautiful vulvas would be fantastic. So clitorises, my friends, they're not just that little thing that you can maybe barely see or that's hidden under the clitoral hood, and you're like, wow, that's pretty microscopic. That I don't know what I can do with that. I can't even find it. And I remember one guy going, it's like a button. It's not a button. Just like, I don't know, like buttons you stick through holes. I don't understand why they would think it's a button or like push button. It's not a push button. I suppose you could tapping on it can feel pretty good with a certain kind of touch, but it's not like just press it and all of a sudden, bam, something turns on. So no, it's not that. So if you've watched porn where, somebody, just sticks their finger on a clitoris and the woman goes, wah, crazy. No, that's not how it works. That I'm aware of. I don't know, ladies out there listening. If yours works that way, congratulations. You are lucky. You can just touch it and you're ready to rock and roll. Awesome. And there are women out there, my friends, who have a lot of pain that goes on with having their clitorises touched as well. They have something that's usually called vulvodynia. Their vulva hurts. So that means that, they've got pain in their labia, usually labia minora, labia majora, pain having their clitoris stroked. Oftentimes they have pain with even having penetration. So this is not going to be a comfortable thing for a woman who has something like vulvodynia. And for those of you women out there who do have vulvodynia, I encourage you to first become friends with your clitoris and become friends with your vulva. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I really there are so many great methods out there. And Betty Dotson is one of the pioneers of masturbation for women in the world. And she's phenomenal. She's been teaching masturbation, I think, since the late 60s or early 70s. She was using this Panasonic vibrator that looks daunting. It's massive. Still in the world, it's considered one of the number one best-selling tools for masturbation for women. I don't own one, and I find it daunting to look at, but hey, if you have one, good for you. Betty Dotson would swear by it, and Betty Dotson really came into gears in the 70s, just letting women know about their anatomy. For one thing, unless you're a yoga master, the chances of you being able to really look at your vulva thoroughly and lean over and look, you got to be pretty flexible to do that. And so some women can absolutely do it, some can't. I know I can do it when I do some pretty whack poses where I lie on my back and throw my legs behind my head. Yes, if that turns you on, I hope it does. And it's part of a stretching thing I do. But you can if I throw my legs over my head, yes, I get a really good view of my vulva, but not everybody can do that. So your chances of having the opportunity to come face to face with your vulva and have a friendship with your vulva is pretty rare, I would say. So you're going to want to bring out your mirror. It's easy, it's friendly, and it's super cool to be able to look at what you've got and just check out your parts. And instead of going, oh my God, my labia are so, oh my God, my labia are so small, oh my God, my labia are so big. A lot of women don't fret about their labia being small because a lot of labia in porn are small. But it's a lot of women who have larger labia, like me, who have had a lot of paranoia about that. And so it's really to get you to get back in friends with your vulva in general. Find your clitoris. And so why I say this is my impression of what's a lot of time going on with women with vulvodynia is they've kind of disconnected completely from their vulva. And this is a great way to start to become reconnected and become friends with your vulva again. I'm not saying this is your cure-all because some women actually have nerve damage and there are other things that are going on. They might have had excessive amounts of endometriosis or something and had many ablations done, so they have a lot of damage and scar tissue. That's all possible too. And I'm just saying for a woman who's experiencing something like vulvodynia, get out that mirror. Take it, unless you can do that crazy pose I was talking about, get out the mirror, have a look, have a conversation. Be like, hey, how's it going, girl? What's going on down there? Aren't you looking good? For those of you who have Netflix, I think the show is still on, called Big Mouth. And like episode 2, one of the characters, it's a cartoon, one of the characters is, she's going through puberty. They're all going through puberty. And she has a conversation with her vulva, and it's so freaking cute. She's like, hey, and her vulva's talking back to her going, hey, girl, how's it going? Where have you been? So glad we're chatting. So I think there's like super friendly, fun conversation. And to me, this is like such a great example of what we can have with any one of our body parts. But today we're talking about the clitoris, and the clitoris, because of the number of nerve endings in the clitoris, it doesn't just affect that tiny little, what we think is that tiny little area. It spreads out. It spreads out through your whole pelvis. So your clitoris itself has 8,000 nerve endings, but when those nerve endings get activated, they actually activate another 15,000 nerve endings in your pelvic area. Doesn't that blow your mind? Like, I think it's like in total, it's like 15,000, whatever numbers. They're freaking huge. Your pelvic area is lit up, like so happy, and unless, of course, you're experiencing vulvodynia, and then it's not so happy. And this is, go back to some other stuff. So yay, pelvis. So if you think about that, that's a lot of nerve endings in one area, which includes like your buttocks and different things around your whole pelvic area. So think about this, ladies. If you got like pain in your ass going on, you got pain in your lower back, you got even pain in your upper legs, I bet you if you start having friendship with your clitoris and you start chatting with her and you start stroking her, you're going to be able to release some like lower back tension, some super stuff going on in there. Why? Because you're going to be stimulating nerves that maybe need to be stimulated. You're going to be creating new neural connections in your brain that might actually send some other information through your body. Like, hey, this touch is actually pleasurable. Yay, this doesn't have to mean pain. And start slow, becoming friends with your clitoris. And have a little peek at her, check her out, have a little talk. Hey, how you doing, girl? What's going on? What would you like today? Just curious. So we got 8,000 nerve endings, plus all those extra nerve endings that go to the pelvic area. Isn't that magnificent? Doesn't that just excite you, thinking about how much that can just explode your world? Just the clitoris is amazing. It's actually got 2 times more nerve endings than a penis. And how many guys shriek in pain if you kick them in the balls or in the crotch? I know when I cracked a guy in the crotch once, like punched him, but I warned him. I was like, dude, if you don't shut up and if you don't stop being obnoxious, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like, I'm going to have to crack you in the nuts. And then he just stood there, and I said, I promise you, if you don't move, I'm going to crack you one in the nuts. And he did. And I wasn't kidding by saying crack, because when I punched him in the nuts, it made a cracking sound. But I warned this guy like twice, shut the fuck up or I'm going to have to crack you in the nuts. And he cried. He cried a lot. But I'm thinking he's got half the nerve endings that I have in my clitoris. If he punched me in the clitoris, I'd be crying and dying, I tell you. But it's funny, right? Like, we don't think about punch a woman in the vulva. I don't know where that thought came from. But we don't. It's just not something I think about. I just don't think about punching women in the vulvas. And thank goodness for that. That's right. The chat in the chat room. Yeah, thank goodness. We've never been like, use that as a common term. I'm going to crack her one in the vulva. No, but we will often say, I'm going to punch that guy in the nuts. Like, I don't know why you made the nuts and the balls, the penis so much more, as if it's more sensitive, but no, it's not, because we have twice the nerve endings as any average boy. So, woohoo, isn't that wild? We've only talked about the very tip of our sweet iceberg called the clitoris. There's so much more fun stuff to talk about. And I've got some brave friends who have chosen to come on and play too. I'm so excited for my brave friends. I'm going to bring them on after this next commercial break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Well, welcome back, sweet pleasure seekers. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and today we're talking about becoming a little bit more literate in our clitorises. Clitoracy. Yes, indeed. What do you know about your clitoris? Or what do you know about your lover's clitoris? Do you know anything about it? Have you even ever touched it? Have you ever stroked it? Have you ever stuck your tongue on it and played around with it? Have you done anything with that sweet little, bundle of love, bundle of nerves? When people say you're such a bundle of nerves, I think, hell yeah, I am. I got a clitoris with 8,000 nerve endings. I am a bundle of nerves. How about you? And I think it's a great thing. How lucky is that? So I'm inviting my sweet friend Keisha to come chat with me about what does she know about clitorises, because she's got experience in this area. She's got one. She's seen them. She knows what to do with them. You know what to do with a clitoris, right?
I know something, yes.
Awesome. That's cool. I want to know, you kind of heard a bit of the show so far, and I'm wondering, what are some fun things that you've learned in your life about your clitoris?
Oh, man, she's pretty powerful. Gosh, when I learned that there was more to the clitoris than the little bit that you actually see, it was pretty amazing. How do I say this? It gave a whole new way for me to play with my own body. And it took the pleasure voltage up quite a bit. You want to put it that way. Yeah. If that's not a word, it is now. The pleasure voltage. Yeah.
Pleasure voltage. Yeah, it should be, right? It's like, what wattage are you at? Yeah.
Right.
Like 60 watt pleasure voltage, 120 watt, 1,000 watt pleasure voltage. I like it. Exploding.
Yeah.
So what do you think,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that it's easy to get, we have those mental pictures And I think it's kind of interesting, because if we play with some of the energetic principles here, like what you focus on is where the energy goes. And if we're only thinking that the clitoris is that like you were saying, that button area, which is, no, it is not a button. It's what was intriguing to me is like when I had the awareness that there was way more involved than just that limited sort of area, it opened up a whole new window of what pleasure could be, and it opened it up in my body as well. So, do you get kind of the imagery of that? Like when we're willing to acknowledge, this might sound funny, but when we're willing to acknowledge our clitoris in our mind, like that, you have a different picture of it, so you can relate to it in a different way, and then you can kind of get out of the linearity with it, and then you can start asking your body to show you what else is possible, and you can start asking, as you were saying, you can start asking your clitoris to start showing you what else is possible, and you can ask your mother's clitoris to show you what else is possible.
Totally. What I love about that idea that you just sort of shared was that, if you have like this ability to imagine things or visualize, and you also have an ability to be able to sense what you visualize, how fun would it be that even though, so we got the clitoris with its 8,000 nerve endings, and then the physiology is that it extends to like 50,000 nerves in the pelvic area. What if all of those nerves, all of our nervous system is interconnected, right to the brain, and we know that the brain is so key to orgasm. What if the clitoris is actually through our whole body, from head to toe?
Really? Right? Yes. I'm down.
Isn't that fun?
Let's go there.
Yeah. So I like to, how much fun can we have just playing with the energy of your clitoris? Even though it starts in that one spot, it extends through your whole body. Goes how fun can this be? Let's just play with this energy for a second or so. Everybody out there with a clitoris, or who would love to be playing with one right now, if you can just be present with your clitoris and imagine the most delightful touch, whatever that is for you, and just imagine that your body's receiving that, and then it's going at whatever speed you love and require, and whatever depths of pressure that you love and require. And then that energy is going to just extend through the 8,000 nerve endings, through the 15,000 in your pelvic area. And then as you breathe in and breathe out, it's going to expand. That energy is just going to start to expand and fill your body. Fill your body. And then what if it even goes beyond your body, right? So physical body orgasm and then energetic body orgasms. How fun is that? What if your clitoris is the invitation to blow the lid off of every orgasm you've ever had? Have fun with that, guys, gals.
Yeah. And it makes me, as you were talking, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. As I was talking, what happened?
As you were saying that, my curiosity went to how we talk about the neural clusters that are in the abdominal region, and if we were to find, wouldn't it be interesting if we were to find, and there could be some studies out there already or some articles out there already, I'm not sure, but if we were to find that actually neural clusters were also found in the pelvis, and because the design of the clitoris is so amazing. It really looks like a little goddess, and
it really does.
It's got wings, a goddess with wings. Yeah. So all the directions that we could say branches of the clitoris goes, pleasure goes all over. So why would we try to constrain that? Why would we try to limit that or contain that?
Why would we? There's no reason to. It just expands and expands, and so fun. I have a curious question for you.
Okay.
Do you remember the first time you actually discovered that you had a clitoris, or that maybe you didn't know the name of it, but that you had this experience of having sensation in your clitoris? How did Like, do you remember what
Yeah.
that was like for you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you were just like,
young.
oh yeah, I do. Awesome.
Yeah, I was very young. Now I had some interesting medical trauma around all of that, and but I was quite young, and then it wasn't until, well, I don't know, I guess I was probably late high school, early college, that I actually started to really play with more than just clitoral stimulation. So,
Cool.
but it was like, as a small child, it was just this, when it was not having to do with the medical aspect, once I got out of that, away from that, yeah, it was definitely something I desired. It was like, oh, that feels amazing. So you don't have to be an adult to enjoy that sensation, you know. So yeah, bodies.
No, you don't have to be an adult, and you don't have to be in your 30s or 40s. Yeah.
And it wasn't about a copulatory type of thing. It was really this, whoa, that feels amazing, you know. So I'm going to do that again, you know, kind of thing.
There's definitely magic in them, their clitoris, I tell you.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun to even be like the invitation to people at young, because you were kind of saying I was pretty young when I discovered my clitoris. I was like, I remember being 4, but I'm sure it was before that. So when people talk about being young, there's no defining age of when it's okay to discover your clitoris, and there's no like, oh my God, I was late, or oh my God, I was early. Like, there are some babies who in utero who are like found with their hands on their genitals, from boys to girls. Yeah. It's like kind of no fags. It feels good, right? So for me, like when I was little, it was mostly about, I would masturbate if I really had to like stop myself from peeing. I had this like fascination with trying to hold on to my pee for as long as possible. And so I would try, I would try and hold on. And so my masturbatory tools were, I had a pillow, and my pillow was my friend. And then I could get like that orgasmic feeling, and then I could hold that, and that would kind of help me. It was actually helping me do Kegels, but at the time I didn't know that that's what I was doing. Yeah. And then the other reason I would do it was because I was so exhausted or frustrated or sad that it would help me sleep. So I used it as a therapeutic. Yeah. So, and I think there's still, like in adulthood too, sometimes my body is just stressed, and I'm like, my go-to is masturbation is one of my first go-to stress relief tools.
My body actually will ask. You brought that up because it's like, and again, it's a pleasure type of, oh gosh, let's give it what kind of phrase can we coin here, you know, because it's not about, oh, I need to have sex. It's about your body having a way that it can move that energy really. And and it doesn't show, like that doesn't show up the way you think it would or when you think it would. And it doesn't show up that way for every person's body. But I know this happens for both men and women, you know, because I've had conversations about it. And bodies do often ask for that when they're super fatigued, or when they're in a heightened stress level, or if you've been, you know, in a long exposure to stress, it would not be totally weird for your body to ask for that. So, yeah, like that's one of those things I would love to just like let people know that's really okay, and it's actually quite what we could call normal. I mean, relatively speaking. How would you put that?
Yeah, I would say that it's common. Yeah, it's really common.
Yeah.
So,
and now with the work you're doing with sex and intimacy, sex and relationship coaching, are you hearing much about that?
Well, what I hear a lot about, I've somehow attracted a whole slew of women who are having a lot of pain. So I'm actually dealing with a lot of women right now, working with a lot of women who have vulvodynia, which was kind of part of the inspiration of this show as well. So one of the people I was talking to, I think there's been like several this week who have had aversions to touch, and then they've had there's just like different levels of becoming more friends with their vulvas, right, in general. And so I'm like looking at like what are some of my favorite tools that I've found through like different research, and then like that I've done for myself that can contribute to people so that they can be happier with their bodies.
Wow.
But we're actually going to head to our commercial break. And I want to thank you so much, Keisha, for joining me and being brave voice for your clitoris and talking about her. Thank you so much. Awesome. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Well, welcome back, sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. Guess what? I don't know if you know this, but there are some very interesting kind of more factuals I'd like to share with you on the clitoris. And feel free to let me know, Keisha, if this is all news to you or if this is all old school news. But one of the things that I only recently found out was that clitorises grow throughout your lifetime. Well, I get that your body grows throughout your lifetime, but what I didn't realize is that your clitoris grows throughout your lifetime. And in fact, during menopause, it will increase 7 times its size sometimes. Isn't that phenomenal? I haven't hit menopause yet or to it. And even though the clitoris is fairly small, a lot of times people don't notice the actual size changing that much. So though I tell you, 7 times bigger is a lot bigger. That sounds pretty fabulous to me. So my body is just whoa. I don't know if it's excited or if it's whatever. So that's pretty fun news. And some other, we talked a bit about how there are so many different sizes to that as well. And that what the other beautiful thing about the clitoris is the only thing that it's created for that we understand so far, the only reason we have this clitoris anatomically is the only purpose it serves is pleasure. And being the pleasure zone, that, my friends, is the ultimate pleasure zone. Your clitoris is your ultimate pleasure zone. Let's face it. Isn't it the coolest thing? Men don't have a part. People who identify as male do not have a part that is solely for pleasure. Even their penis has a secondary function, you know. But for people who gender identify as women and who have anatomical female gender parts, we got clitorises whose only function is to have pleasure. I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. And the other cool thing is that there's so many ways that you can have pleasure with your clitoris. And that's part of the exploration that you get to go on. And, you know, it could be fun that you could kind of sit and have a little conversation with your clitoris and see if there's anything that you haven't tried yet with your clitoris that it would like. And it's really funny because as I just said this, I have this like beautiful, these beautiful crystals in my office that I'm looking at. And some of them have been like smoothed out. And one of them just like yelled at me like, yes. And like my clitoris is just like, yes. I'm like, all right, maybe I'll be christening some crystals with my clitoris. Like I got a jade egg and that goes inside, but I don't really have anything that's been dedicated to my clitoris. And maybe it just wants some soft, you know, tumbled crystals rolling around it. That's a whole other level of crystal healing, my friends. Doesn't that sound fun? So I know it's weird. And there's like, they also have way to feel kind of cooling and stuff. So I like that too. And the other thing about clitorises too is that they are so often part of what women require for orgasm. I mean, those nerve endings go into the whole pelvic area. For some women, again, that it can be painful, that won't work for them. But a lot of times, clitoral stimulation is as required as, and even more so required than just penetration. So in order to have orgasm, and so many women do not have vaginal orgasms, so many women have clitoral orgasms. And there was a study that I read several months ago that said that even a vaginal orgasm is really truly based in the clitoris because of the way the nerve endings are around the vagina and that the way that they work with the whole pelvis. I can't remember who authored that, but it was a great source of information. I want to share a few pieces of the literature with you guys that you might find interesting. I've been recently listening to a book on audiobooks called She Comes First. It was written by a man for both men and women, but it's really about getting men to become more clitorate as well. And I'm enjoying his foray in his life into like his whole story behind what had him become clitorate. And part of what had him become clitorate was that the author of the book, his experience was that he was actually he had like early ejaculation. I'm not getting a technical word, but he would have early ejaculation. So premature ejaculation. And so that was part of what had him start to get curious about how to pleasure a woman. In January, I had a guest on who wrote a book called Conscious Cock. And most of his book, as much as you would think it's going to be about penises, so much about it is actually about, that one's dedicated to heterosexual couples, but it's really about having more understanding for men about the women's anatomy. She Comes First is gender neutral. It's for anybody who wants to love a vagina. And my all-time favorite is definitely Pussy, a Reclamation by Regina Thomashauer. She is so amazing at just giving a whole history and story behind all of the beauty and the magic of the clitoris. And the vulva, all of it is just awesome. Think about your 8,000 nerve endings today, ladies, and lovers of ladies, and how that spreads through your body. Stay tuned in and turned on till next week.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life. by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.